So, guys, can you let me know if I'm back? Because I did reboot the system, and I'm not sure what the problem is. I don't even think it's on my end. And when stuff like this happens, I'm glad I'm not charging anybody one shilling to watch my broadcasts because I'd be embarrassed. I don't see comments here. So I wonder if I'm even back up and back in. Okay, I see somebody back in the comments, so maybe I am back. Hopefully it's YouTube's problem instead of mine. I had a good tech guy who was behind some prominent podcasts from WTOV9, the biggest affiliate in the greater Ohio Valley area. I did some podcasts for them on special horse racing occasions like Derby, Preakness, Breeders' Cup, and stuff like that. And so he came here for a very modest fee to set me up with all my technical equipment here in the dungeon. And he knows what he's doing. Doesn't mean the problem's not on my end because I am coming to you from a basement and maybe the signal's just not strong enough. I don't know. But again, I'm glad I'm not charging you money, dinero, for this, at least at this point, guys. Loud and clear. This is my man, Code Brown, who does not call himself Code Brown for no reason. My man likes the Cleveland Browns. So who's your quarterback choice? Mr. Code Brown. Is it the vilified, reviled Shedeur Sanders? Or is it Deshaun Watson, who has been more than equally vilified for completely different reasons, guys? Do they have a quarterback? Is there some kind of an offense you can play without a quarterback? I think Watson's washed up. And I've always thought that Shedeur could play in the right system with the right coach. I don't like his strut. I don't like his swag. I don't like his father's attitude, his domineering attitude, or the way he plays the press and the victim card. But I do think Shedeur's got guts. I think he's a gamer. I think he's got an arm, too. Maybe not a strong, deep arm, but I think he's got some accuracy and toughness, too, because I've seen him eat turf a lot of times when he was a Colorado Buffalo and get up off the mat and throw touchdown passes. So my selection would actually be Shedeur Sanders if I'm coaching the Cleveland Browns to quarterback them. So many minutes do we have here, guys? Cowboy fan, Code Brown. I'm thinking of somebody else who's a fan of the Browns, Cowboy fan. That's even worse, man, because it's in my DNA as a devout Pittsburgh Steelers fan since the 70s, by the way, and I'm showing my age, to absolutely hate the Cowboys. The audacity. How could they ever have had the stones to call themselves America's team? And I am going to alienate viewers. This is worse than politics when you start to knock other NFL franchise. I know that it is, but bear with me. How in the hell could they call themselves America's team during the same decade when the mighty Steelers won 4 freaking Super Bowls? And they still had that swag like they were superior. Like Starlock always thought he was better than Bradshaw. Based on what? Mr. Former Naval Commander. Based on exactly what? Somebody is wishing for Flacco back on the Browns there. How many minutes do we have here, guys? Yeah, 0 to post and 1 to 2 on the 2-horse here. The only other horse in it with even a smidgen of current form, and I guess it's good current form, missed by a head last time, but that was on turf, and the last time in an off-turf race, it got ugly. It got straight up ugly at 6 to 5 there for Crafty Lawyer. So I think Eddie Clouston's just banking back, putting some stock on that third-place finish. First time to the post at Finger Lakes. That was on dirt, but how good can a horse be training on dirt if they kicked that horse's career off for $5,000 at a maiden race at Finger Lakes? And Linda Rice got a load of that action and said, no, thank you, and sent Crafty Lawyer right on down the road. On the outside, you have got the Lynn Cutno horse. He won with a first-time starter. I think one of those South Carolina bred things, did he not? A few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, you rarely see first-time starters win claimers, though, at Mountaineer. Almost never happens unless it's kind of a clever bloke that pulls it off, kind of under the radar. Number 7, Gorda, 5 to 1. Why in the world was Gorda claimed third time to the post? What was that about, except making Silva go someplace and pay the freight to get a horse here, and then jumping on that horse at the claim box, and they're gonna put lipstick on this pig as long as they can and keep running Gorda for higher claiming prices. 25,000, 17,500, 15,000 again. At some point, they're gonna have to admit they didn't even get $4,000 worth of horse. At least that's what it looks like to me. Got 4-1 on Brand New Dance on the inside. Brand New Dance was second a couple back at Charleston, but the speed fig was low, and the subsequent number is not good at all. Sherry Jackson used to win a lot of races at Mount Airy. Remember Collectorate? That was her big horse. I don't go against the 2 horse here, but I'm not gonna bet because I think the price is gonna go like 2 to 5 or perhaps even to a Good Moments and drop 1 to 5. Well, this card has been so far everything that you dread an off-turf card's going to be walkover winners at 1-5 and 2-5, horses that can't lose. They're just painfully obvious, just lousy betting action. You can't blame Mountaineer because if you're going to card turf races, this is an occupational hazard. Interesting question. My man Rex said, wherefore art thou 100K show polls of the past? I've seen them up to 400,000 at Mountaineer. The players can't get down anymore because the wagering platforms discourage that kind of action. Ever seen the movie The Sting where Robert Shaw plays the mob boss who says, we want to discourage this kind of thing when he gets grifted by Paul Newman and Robert Redford? Great movie, man. Love the soundtrack. Well, wagering platforms want to discourage that kind of thing. I can recall when Joe Woodard ran a coupling back when trainers still had their horses coupled as 1 and 1A in a 4-life allowance. I remember it like it was yesterday, man, because I remember everything like it was yesterday because I'm an old fuck. Anyways, these horses had to run 1-2. They could not do anything but run 1-2. And there was like 300,000 in a show pool on this tandem. And Mountaineer attracted that kind of action because it's one of the few jurisdictions that still pays 10%. You don't see horses 5 cents on the dollar. You see horses 10 cents on the dollar. That's the minimum. So you know what? What's the old saying? You're not going to get 10% out of a bank in a minute and 41 seconds. A bank won't take all your money, though, in a minute and 41 seconds. And I've seen some big bridge jumpers, and they used to consult me, too, before they'd make a big move when they could still get down. There was one guy who was headquartered in Vegas, and he was an aging gentleman who had been a legendary pianist, I think, for the Tommy Dorsey band, and had gone on to have his own musical review, a Bawdy, B-A-W-D-A musical review in Vegas. And he was an iconic gay gentleman. He was revered by the gay community. And he would just bet piles of money to show, tons of money. And he kept sending me money tips for just my on-air comments about whether it was safe or not, because bridge jumping was very much the topic in Mountaineer during this time, which was, I don't know, about 10 years ago, something like that, maybe a little bit more. And I would talk about whether I thought a horse was safe or not to take the big bridge jump on. And I used to say I could have gone to infinity and never missed when it came to bridge jumping, because not only, and you can teach a 3-year-old to do this, I've said it a million times, to identify extreme superiority that one horse might enjoy over the rest of the field, but you can't teach a 3-year-old to vet potential bridge jumps for possible pitfalls, to be imaginative and knowledgeable about things that might potentially go wrong with a bridge jumper. At some point, I think I offended it because I told them I don't really feel right when you send me 10s and 20s and envelopes and stuff like that, an occasional 50, because I'm a racing official and I don't want your money, man. I don't need it and I don't want it. I think I offended him because after that, he contacted me very few times. I think he and McMichael stayed friends, and good on them because he was a nice guy, a really nice guy. Sent me a birthday card one time, so I better let him remain nameless here, with male appendages all over it. I wasn't offended. I thought it was funny, you know? But you just don't see the big action in the show pool anymore, you know? So where for art we? You know, we're on the 4th race, 5 furlongs. There's better stuff ahead. Last couple of races are quality, and they were never supposed to be turf, so they're not exactly scratched to pieces. And each features a bona fide headline horse. Cyber Time in the last, it was 6 for 6 last year for Anthony Ferrier, a.k.a. Big Heavy Boy, across the Mid-Atlantic region. And he looks like he might be back in form after a couple of tighteners so far this season. The horse I want to see, though, is Larimar. She of 22 career wins in the 7th race. And if you're thinking, okay, just more chalk, just more rain on top of the chalk storm, maybe, perhaps. I advised in one of my banners here, and I'll put it up again, one of my crawls across the bottom. Yeah, my special notes. There's my note about the first race, which Big Whoop identified the grand trip, or the unbeatable trip that Good Moments was going to enjoy there. And in the second race, where's a closer when you need one? Slanderous tried to play role a behind the pace winner. Couldn't quite pull it off. The sixth race, what's the old song? Baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. As far as lousy action goes, lousy action of a different sort. Does there have to be a winner in the race 6? You'll see what I mean when you get there. And in the eighth race, Tricky Dynamics could force stalking ride on Swift Invader Cyber Time, who used to be able to stalk the pace, but prefers to go to the lead. So my big note there, my big advice was clock the bias before taking short odds, the kind of short odds that Cyber Time's going to go off at. The inside looks okay to me so far. So far, so good if you're a big Cyber Time fan. Fourth race, 5 furlongs, never two. Got to tell you guys about something I saw on TV earlier today, but I don't have time right now. I think we're running behind because I had to reboot a couple of times. Fourth race, I hope I'm not fading in and out again, guys, because eventually I'm going to get paid for doing this when we get up to 500 subscribers. But at that point, I got to have a good signal, a strong signal, a pure signal. And again, I haven't even gone to the stake yet and tried to round up my old fans. They were pretty fanatical about watching me. I'm up to what, 321 subscribers? Which I don't think is too bad for this kind of an endeavor when I've been out of the public spotlight for so long, man. And a lot of my old fans don't know where I'm at or what I'm doing. So we got 5/8 for the fourth race. This is a never two. And what's the claiming price? 15,000. Yeah, I think this was supposed to be one of those turf races, right? Yeah, how's that feel? And man, there's a lot of speed in here, as you might expect in a 5/8 race. Collected Mist. I just ran right off the screen last time and always gets the lead. It's really quick, consistently quick Collected Mist. And if Collected Mist is going to lay a couple of lengths on this bunch, mainly comprised of other speeds than Collected Mist, just by getting the first punch in, might be halfway home, and that 47 buyer, I think, would carry the day. But Collected Mist has blown more clear leads than the law allows. And also, and this is a subtlety, but I want to bring it up before you take a short price on Collected Mist. Collected Mist, the place horse, came back to tank last night, correct? Didn't run so well. And Collected Mist staggered, no walked, no crawled. The final 220 there, the final eighth of a mile in. Oh my goodness. About 14 and 2/5 seconds? That is begging to be caught. That is saying, please come and get me somebody. But you would be hard pressed to find somebody here that can race without the lead and still muster up much enthusiasm for the passing game, correct? Prairie Brat, number 6. Here's another potential pitfall when it comes to Collected Mist is I better check how many minutes to post, right? All this rebooting and all this yakking I'm doing, We're still in the paddock, says 1 minute to post. I'll drag this for about another 10 spot, correct? Prairie Brat. John Brown ran a horse last night with a 4 furlong form that I liked a lot. And I think the 7th race, and the horse got the lead, but then the horse folded up a little bit at 5.5. This one only has to go 5/8. Prairie Brat, who's consistently fast in those 4 furlong races there. Tried to go 6 last time at Fairmont and was hooked out there on closer-friendly splits. So this horse fits a 5 furlong non-life at Mountaineer for sure. And John Brown's been sneaky about bringing horses in with that Will Rogers Downs form and winning races this year. It has almost rejuvenated a training career that was dead, man, like dead a couple of years back. I know this guy best, and I digress here. What else is new? For a horse named 30 Silver Pieces, who we used to admire a lot, a tenacious front-running route horse who could win allowance optionals and $25,000 claimers and stuff like that at Mahoning. And I cast just a hell of a bet one time on the dead game, 30 Silver Pieces, and like a 4-horse photo. What a sweet memory. I think that may well be my favorite Mahoning memory ever. And again, I'm considering doing Mahoning commentary when October rolls around. Maybe I might. Because I do know that track intimately, and I made a considerable amount of money betting on Mahoning. I mean, the first year or two they were open, before the CAWs and the sharp guys even picked up on them, before they even came across their radar, The money was so stupid. The money literally reflected Joe Blow from Austintown and from Youngstown. Seriously, there was no smarty money in the pools at all. No wise guy money in the pools. And you could get incredible prices on obvious winners over there. And I won so much money, it was insane. I can tell you guys some stories about how much money I won first couple of years at Mahoning. It was just crazy. If I do Mahoning, I will tell you guys some stories. I'm going to save them for those cold winter afternoons, should I choose to do Mahoning. Diamond Dancer in here. Diamond Dancer was claimed there. Silva jumped in to take one from Bernardini. I don't think that's a grudge thing like he's going on with Jamie Poole. As if this guy can't bring in enough horses from Phoenix and Southern Cal, and now he brings them up from Florida and also sometimes from Parks. He's got to claim at Mountaineer. It doesn't always work out so well. I don't have stats on it, but I don't like the move when a 1-5 shot is claimed on the class drop. It just doesn't seem to work out at the box. Did Diamond Dancer not have the kind of form? And I know Diamond Dancer had been backing up for 12-5, which is basically bottom at Gulfstream Park. But did Diamond Dancer not have the kind of form that usually gets a crack or two at Maiden Special or 15 maidens at Mountaineer? Instead, right down to $4,000, like they wanted to lose Diamond Dancer. And I will tell you something else. Diamond Dancer had the grain in her favor last time. The track was better out wide. That was a perfect trip for Diamond Dancer. But then again, if these speeds back up, and they've got a license to do that, and they will slow up at the end, Prairie Brat and Collected Mist, Diamond Dancer has a bit more tenacity, a bit more determination, has been second a couple of times and third once from behind the pace, and those were the first three outings. And also Diamond Dancer is, and this I guess is something of a distinction, and attracted Silva at the claim box, has finished in the money with competitive efforts. I'm talking seconds and close-up thirds on every type of footing known to man. But Diamond Dancer did have a whole lot in her favor last time, and the Knight's going to have to play catch-up. Certainly behind Collected Mist and maybe behind Prairie Brat. 30-1 now on SS Cosmopolitan, who was not taken to behave anymore. Isn't this the horse that used to buck out of the gate? Well, my man Mike Jimenez was the trainer. Late Spring Night on the outside. If you're desperate to find somebody to sit behind the pace, Late Spring Night's got to be behind the pace and still get a clean trip. Very low grade. For every measurable aspect of that win on July the 7th, that's not going to do it. But there could be some camouflaged improvement from that third place. From that, I'm Elmer Fudd. I'm going full Elmer Fudd here from that third place finish. I won forced to steady early on the turf last time, Late Spring Night. So something to consider there, I think. She's Twisted on the inside. Some residual support there at 4-1 for She's Twisted, who used to show all kinds of speed. Couldn't win for Larry Ravelli, though. When you can't win for the Riv, after several consecutive tries at less than even money, you can't be a lot of horse. I got news for you. The maiden win was Charlestown, non-claiming, but it was so slow, it almost doesn't count. I had this idea, though, that She's Twisted had shown improved determination when outfooted for the lead on July 27th to be making another late gain late. Another late gain late. That's a redundancy. A late gain and to run second. Didn't bear any fruit, though, at all next time out on August the 12th. That was a poor effort from She's Twisted. And she's a ground zero there, man, with Prairie Brat and more so Collected Mist. Going to be flying out there in the lead. So something popped up on a video. I'm watching YouTube and a rando video pops up. You know how they do their algorithms and figure what you maybe want to see. And it was outtakes from Bonanza. Beloved show for me, family show, iconic Western. And when I was, I think, 9 years old, my little buddy Paul Majors, his family had the only color TV in the neighborhood. And I used to get to go over there and watch The Wonderful World of Disney and then Bonanza. So these guys are iconic to me. I love their characters. Paul Cartwright, for my money, the strongest patriarch in the history of television, and the charismatic Michael Landon, the greatest television star ever, Michael Landon. And then good old Heart with a Heart, good old Big old grizzly bear with a heart of gold, Haas, too. Dan Blocker. So I'm watching these outtakes. And Michael Landon blows a line, and you should have seen how Lauren Green snapped at him. He said, "Come on, kid, get with it. Get the F with it, kid." I'm like aghast because I still picture them as having been one big happy family. Duh, they were actors. And the hostility in his voice was just jarring. But oh no, they weren't done to completely ruin any happy memory I have of the Cartwrights being one big, happy model family out there in the Ponderosa. Haas, Dan Blocker, big old Haas with a heart of gold, is doing the same with some little chick who's playing a school marm. So she blows a couple of lines, at which point Haas, and I can't use this word, even on my own YouTube channel, it's one of the verboten words. Haas turns and says, "Can somebody straighten this C word out?" Calls her the C word right in front of her. And she looks about ready to cry. Talk about being disillusioned. Well, I can't have outtakes here in the dungeon because everything is an outtake. There's not much I won't say. And there's not much that I hide from you guys. Almost none of my personal life is not an open book. And everything I think about any topic in horse racing, any horse, any trainer, any jockey, I'm going to spit it out here. Why not, man? Let it fly. And I've always been that way. I am somewhat known for my candor when it comes to horse racing commentary. So I can't have outtakes. Everything's an outtake to begin with. Nine to 5 on Diamond Dancer. I think Collected Mist should be lowered 4-1. Unfortunately, Collected Mist will be lower than 4-1 come post time. 9-2 on the 9 horse seems to me like money spent almost on spec because that dirt win will not do it. There's got to be some improvement hidden in that turf line from July 27th for late spring night to win this. And I can tell you she's twisted as overbet from the inside because she's twisted, if out-footed, and it seems very likely here, is not going to do a July 27th and keep on trucking and come with a late gain to make an exacta-worthy effort. That's not going to happen. This is dirt. This is kickback. She gets out-footed along the rail here, and her night's over. Lots of distinctly different moving parts in that race, and they each played their part in a predictable manner. You had the 6 horse who went out and put just enough heat on Collective Mist, who doesn't need much early pressure to put the brakes on. Remember, Collective Mist walked the last 8 last time, was lucky there was nobody coming within range. And then you had the 9 horse on the outside who did improve last time, I guess. Camouflaged improvement in that troubled trip outing on the turf and figured a trip cleanly out there from close position and to hope the 6 horse could exert something on this 7 early. And then the 5 horse was in the role of finisher there, actually. Not a stout finisher, but given the setup here, I guess reverted back to those first 3 career outings when formidably placed on every type of footing known to man and from behind the lead in each of those instances. So in that race, I think the winner was more or less the tallest dwarf, midget, little person, I guess is a PC way to say it. The best finisher in a cast of horses that really can't finish at all. Kenny Neely makes a cogent point there in his comments that the 9 horse was jabbing at the ground and stayed left lead in Victory a couple of starts back. It was more of the same here. It was definitely that horse's race to lose when they turned for home and stayed left lead and just did not finish what she started, just snatched defeat from the jaws of Victory there. So I don't see a great future. And sometimes they look different in action than they do on paper, and I don't see much of a future for a horse with that kind of stride late spring night. What did Yogi Berra say? Starting to get laid awful early around here. I think it's laid awful early for late spring night, just the 8th start of her career, and I don't see a bright future in that action. Something a little bit different coming up now. I think this might be our first race of the night. It was supposed to be dirt to begin with. 5 furlongs, starter 4,000, fillies and mares. Interesting array here. Pretty cheap by starter allowance standards, I'd have to say. Rockstar Parking on the inside is an 11-time winner. And Rockstar Parking, if you want to go back a couple of months, has competed with and beaten better horses than these. Rockstar Parking, though, in Victory there on July the 22nd, I'm not sure who really fired against Rockstar Parking there. Waterworks would tail off in the immediate aftermath, which is not a good sign. And Waterworks was, I think, in come from behind mode there, missed a break as she is sometimes wont to do. So I'm not sure the task was real tall for Rockstar Parking. And I think the track might have been a little bit better out there where Rockstar Parking sat. And with a clean voyage on the outside of horses, that afforded Rockstar Parking the luxury of being able to miss the break a little bit, which is habitual with her, and still get the good trip to cruise up and challenge and the better part of the surface out there wide. Rockstar Parking. So good trip and a good buyer, the kind of buyer that would win this. But man, you take Rockstar Parking off a clunking effort at 2-1 and you stick this horse down along the inside as an habitual slow breaker. And I don't want Rockstar Parking. I'm going to try and beat Rockstar Parking. Interesting choice of assignments here and the starter $4,000 category, because Rockstar Parking, I think, was in for the $4,000 price and one of those funky ass ratings handicaps, the Equibase ratings handicaps, last 2 trips to the post. Small Town Smoke Show, I loved last time. So did everybody else. Ended up like 6-5. There was an extremely fast-paced race against Bashful Daisy, who likewise used that fast-paced 6 furlong race as a springboard to come back and win a couple. In fact, at 4.5 and 5/8, Small Town Smoke Show really struggled to hang on to what was hers, though. It was her victory on paper, and she tried to squander it in deep stretch there. Did Small Town Smoke Show. I don't see her as up to the class height, because it's one thing to win for $4,000, but it's another to do it unimpressively with a low speed fig at a low condition. There are many classifications within a $4,000 claiming range, and that was one of the lower ones. Fancy Princess, number 3, did the Bristol Stomp when she got the lead there on May the 19th. Encouraging return to competition there. The speed fake didn't quite match over the margin or the visual aspect of the win, and just kind of went evenly in her most recent race there. Just, I'm not sure that I see the talent to win an unclaimer in Fancy Princess, and I don't see the quickness to get the lead either at a 5 furlong trip. Although one thing this race really lacks is 5 furlong speed, 5 furlong quickness, early acceleration. So the horses that are up on the engine are not unlikely to be strong. And if Small Town Smoke Show gets the lead, then I think she qualifies as weak speed, maybe the quickest in here. But off her most recent, she probably comes back and hands the baton to horses, stronger horses that are in good position, maybe right behind her. And a couple of horses on her outside fit the bill. In fact, numbers 4, 6, and 7, I think all have a chance here. And all have tasted victory of late. Delray Dolly on the outside is a 17-time winner. Boy, she goes about her business in a quiet manner, except for that wide margin win with the ostentatious speed fake back on November the 17th. She proved that she was upwardly mobile, though. And a couple of her wins, she scored a couple of starters, and she can rally. She won't turn her nose up when a couple of horses open up on her, Delray Dolly, and she was part of the pace last time against Bonita Vita, who might be better than these horses, Bonita Vita. So she's a big chance, I think, Delray Dolly on the outside. And I think given the one post and Rockstar Parking's habit of not breaking so well, and the fact that Rockstar Parking comes into this off a clunker and Delray Dolly's in good form and hardly knocked out for the year with 5 starts under her belt, I think she's a more deserving favorite than would be the one horse here. I'm going to check on who's favored right now at this point at 3 minutes to post. So that's an eternity at Mountaineer. And yeah, Delray Dolly is the favorite. So we had one horse save any ground the night to win, and that was a 2-5 shot they couldn't lose, right? 2-5 or 3-5? Was it 2-5 on Red Drapes in race number 3? Does it mean it's okay to go back in the water and that the dreaded negative rail is not in play? I don't know if I'm going to assume that for Deadfire Certain, guys. I'm gun shy though when it comes to the inside because it's been so shaky so many times this year, which is a departure from last year. Want to play more fairly than ever, and I thought it dispelled the big bad Mountain Maine anti-rail stigma. No man's land down in there. In the old times when jocks would avoid in her past like it was some kind of a forbidden Cherokee burial ground in an old Western movie with James Garner and Sidney Poitier. Duel at Diablos, the movie that comes to mind. A little bit crazy. Rare is the horse in this region, on this circuit, that can be away like a year and a half, man alive, and come back a running with a second and a couple of wins there. So it was money well spent at the claim box by Jamie Poole. Is she a paper tiger, though? Because she beat $4,000 condition horses and low condition horses. She beat a low condition horse and scoot along in a stone cold closer that wants to rout and Memento Me there. And that off-turf race on June the 15th, so she didn't prove a thing. Remember, this race was drawn up for dirt to begin with. And then on July the 8th, there was a complete lack of speed in that race, and she's supposed to be strong off her Charlestown history. And for her to get the lead there at 9-5, she's good to go, man, in the late stages. And those speed figs aren't going to frighten anybody in here because several of these can touch higher on the buyer scale. So she's very beatable here, I think. A little bit crazy. I give Greyhound Station a big chance because I think the seemingly quote-unquote classier horses in here are ripe for the plucking from somebody who's razor sharp and up out of a cheap race. And Greyhound Station was lone speed on August the 11th. I'm not going to snow you, but she kind of caught my eye. She was visually impressive there, I thought. Greyhound Station and third start of cycle. Should be a lot left in the tank. Ramjeet's stepped in at the box there, and they've been having a pretty good season, Team Ramjeet. Got the Parks history here at $100,000 from just 25 starts for Greyhound Station. Has been mainly a speed, but has been known to follow the pace and still give a good performance, Greyhound Station. So if I say I don't like the 1, 2, or 3, instead I prefer the trio, the 4, 6, and 7, I don't think I'm telling you a whole lot, am I? Because the board largely reflects that opinion. I think a little bit crazy might be somewhat overrated. So let's boil it down a little bit more. My potential winners, the horses I'm looking at are Greyhound Station and Delray Dolly. If Delray Dolly is the likeliest winner, I think the likeliest horse to maybe beat Delray Dolly might be Greyhound Station. That's my take on the race, guys. You guys are getting too technical for me with the snip and stretch software, so you can show screenshots of your betting accounts. I'm not going to show any screenshots on mine because my betting service has put the fear of death into me about even touting them, offer to endorse them. And they said, no, thanks. We don't need you, man. Which might be a sign of my flagging, waning popularity, huh? But they're good. My service is really good, and very satisfied with them. Not going to red board. I put a banner up. I didn't like the horse. Up from a cheap condition race and almost failed to convert. A golden win opportunity at 9-5 there and a big class race there. Not the stoutest of starter allowance fields, though. And I will say in the aftermath that Small Town Smoke Show was the only short sprint quickness in there, was the only horse with history going to the lead with a quick early burst. So played that advantage right to the house there. Did Small Town Smoke Show and seemed to make the inside look okay, which could have profound implications for races 7 and 8 tonight, and even the 6th potentially, huh? We are just 6 minutes to post here, I can see. And this is the race I posted earlier. Is there going to be a winner in this race? Does somebody have to win it? Because I know the 2 is going to be a really short-priced favorite, but man alive, what bland efforts the 2 starts at Mountaineer from Classic Alfie. What's it all about, Alfie? Huh? What's it all about? When my sister was, I don't know, 18, 19 years old, her boyfriend was like mid-20s and a sophisticate. So we had to go to the movies once, and they didn't want to take me, but I was in Sissy's charge, and they had to drag me along. So went to see a movie, and I'm begging for those Callaways or 101 Dalmatians or some kind of a Disney job, some kind of a gladiator movie. But oh, no. We had to go see Alfie with Michael Caine. Yeah. I really wanted that action at 9 years old. What's it all about, Alfie? I think Burt Bacharach actually said that was his favorite composition out of all his songs. What's it all about, Alfie? Classic Alfie came here off a couple of sprints, off a recent sprint win. And my sinister theory on July the 21st was that Classic Alfie was rated back to defer to a stablemate who actually went up and flashed speed. But that theory was out the window next time when Alfie draws inside. I think I bet on Alfie. And Alfie, again, just spins wheels in a very unbecoming manner. So this looks like one of those Diodoro purchases that has turned out to be a complete bust. But you can't get an easier field than this. Sugar Lips, 2 for 53. This horse hasn't won in maybe a decade. Klimster, 1 for 36. Dancing on Air, 1 for 20 something, 1 for 25. Dancing on Air doesn't want to route. This horse wants to be a late sprinter, but too late, it looks like to me. And the one time that Dancing on Air was close to the winner at the wire Game Maker was trying to lose that race and really slow it up in the final stages back on June 21st. So if you got a Dancing on Air who's too late, Ticket to Paradise looks too early here at 5-1. I'm all for sprinters trying a little additional real estate to see some pace relief. But you got a horse here that's been getting the lead at 4.5 and 5/8 and completely blowing it, completely falling apart. So what good is additional real estate going to do? Ticket to Paradise was 3 on top and finished no better than 4th at 4.5 on July the 4th. I can't see 6 furlongs from this horse. Even the good buyers are bad buyers. Red Fern on the outside. I never read that book Where the Red Fern Grows. Yeah, they took me to see freaking Alfie. Alfie. It still burns my ass how sophisticated he attempted to be trying to impress my sister. Remember the one tragic occasion, and I've told this story before on the air because I never get tired of telling it because I still resent it. Part of me hates the man for it still. He's still alive, still kicking. And they're still married. But I remember when I was so into Lost in Space, they had this incredible cliffhanger with this hairy monster trapped Will Robinson and Dr. Smith in a cave. So I'm waiting till next Thursday, and it was going to come on at 8 o'clock. I'm waiting to see this resolve because, man, they're dead meat in that cave. So Sissy calls me aside with a look on her face that tells me it's not going to be good and said, Marky, Bill's coming over and he wants to watch Color Me Barbara. I was a stupid little fuck at 9 years old, but I was smart enough to understand that an abstract asshole adult title like Color Me Barbara was 20 miles of bad unpassable road. And it sure as the hell wasn't Lost in Space. So we had to watch Barbara Streisand sing People Who Love People instead of Will Robinson and Dr. Smith in that freaking cave. And I have never forgotten it. And somebody pulled up the TV schedule from that night and confirmed that I'm not making this stuff up. It happened, man. Didn't get to watch Lost in Space. Instead had to watch Color Me Barbara. What freaking then 26-year-old self-respecting red-blooded American male who could fix a car, by the way, wanted to watch effing Color Me Barbara. Red Fern. Never read the book Where the Red Fern Grows on the outside here. Some of the synthetic races could win this. Some of the turf races could win this, but it ain't synthetics and it ain't turf. It's dirt. And the dirt tries, oh, they're bad. And I just looked King Clouston up because I was dimly aware that he's in this slump, and it's worse than I had suspected. He's, I think, only one of his last 18 or 19 saddled. It's then ominous as he holds the 2 key cards in race 7 tonight with Larimar and also Flat Out Diamonds, the good mare Flat Out Diamonds, who we just claimed from Dennis Cluley. Not the first guy I would halter from. Ryan Thurbert, horse trainer, by the way. Yeah, I feel your lyrics, a.k.a. Norman Williams. Barbara Streisand can sing Up a Storm. And you know what? A few years back, before she got some age on her, although she's pretty well preserved, I'll give her that much. I thought she was about half sexy too, in her own way, Barbara Streisand, but she ain't Billy Mummy. I was never remember the intrepid space traveling Robinson family. So it was beyond traumatic for me to miss freaking Lost in Space. An exciting cliffhanger on that fateful Thursday night when I had to watch Color Me Barbara instead. Can you feel me, man? Can you feel me on that? I didn't care what kind of voice she had when I'm 9 years old. She got the moves too earlys and the moves too lates in here, and Classic Alfie. His two local races were so lousy, but Classic Alfie did show a snappy win going 6 furlongs at Louisiana Downs back in June. That was off the bench. Maybe Classic Alfie's not the soundest of thoroughbred creatures, huh? And what's going to take to win this? Nothing. And Classic Alfie on overall form should get the loosest of. No, I'm sorry. Ticket of Paradise is going to get the lead. So if you're thinking Classic Alfie's going to revert to speed mode in here, probably not, because a bona fide quitter who almost certainly can't get the trip is going to at least relegate Alfie to a rating posture through the early stages. And what's the price going to be on the tours? Like 3 to 5 or something like that? Even money right now in Classic Alfie. Is Sugar Lips 4 to 1, or do mine eyes deceive me? I actually came up with some half baked idea when this horse cut back in distance and pulled into a closer's race on a closer's track that Sugar Lips had a chance in July there. Oh my God, what a big mistake for me to use this horse in the Daily Double. And I swore never again. Sugar Lips was taking these little sissy strides like halfway around the turn, just not even a thoroughbred anymore, I don't think. Gary Welsh, not a bad horseman, but man, he's got some bad stock. Really bad stock. Sugar Lips 7 to 2. With that dead money in play, they may force me to bet this race. Not. Good luck to you kids. Smoke them if you got them. Did Steve the Madge actually make a win bet there, or did mine eyes deceive me? My man's got to be inconsolable if he bet the 6 horse to win instead of his customary show, because the show pay wasn't bad, even with a favorite on top, was it? I feel for you, Stevie, me boy, because I got to tell you, with the 2 horse sluggish on the turn back there and maybe in tight through the early stages, I'm thinking whoever's in front has got a ticket to win this. And it was a horse on the cutback from a series of round races, Red Fern. So I wanted where the Red Fern grows for my money at the 3/8 pole. But here comes the favorite, just loping along up on the outside, the challenge. And if you bet the 6 to win, that had to feel like the proverbial slow speed train wreck, like when you dream you're on the tracks and you're frozen, paralyzed. You can't move. The train's coming slowly. Doesn't matter because you can't move. And you could see which way that was going to shake down in the late stages. Bland, uninspiring thoroughbred action there. And somebody else said Batman was on at the same time as Lost in Space. That would have been dumb scheduling, right? Because they were going for the same demographic. Stupid little kids like me, right? I liked Lost in Space way better. I got to be honest, because I was all excited about Batman because all I did was read comics when I was a kid, mainly Batman and Superman, and sometimes the offbeat stuff like the Phantom or Green Lantern, the Flash. I like the Flash with Barry Gordon. I thought it was pretty cool. But I was all excited for the live action Batman with real actors. I'm thinking this is just going to rock, man. And then it's all cheesy, you know. They couldn't even fool me into thinking it was serious. It was almost like a mockery of my beloved Batman story. And I gave up on it when Batman is dancing across the discotheque with these sissy ass moves and hitting on chicks while he's chasing the Joker. I'm thinking, oh, please, that's not Batman. No, this man is not Batman. And now we come to the best races on the card. This is an allowance for horses which have not won an allowance in 2026, or they got to go for the claiming price of $15,000. And you see so many starter winners in here, and those starter wins don't count. And you see a horse that scored both types this year and has had the best season. Flat Out Diamonds, best season maybe aside from Larimar. Flat Out Diamonds has won an allowance this year, and also a starter. So if you read the conditions closely, you realize that Flat Out Diamonds is going to go right back in for a tag, the tag here. First time out of the box. So it's not like Klaus that is incredibly proud of Flat Out Diamonds. But this might be the only spot he can find and come up with for Flat Out Diamonds, who is on a slight raise from the 12.5 there. Flat Out Diamonds is just all racehorse, man. I've seen it win like at 5/8, 5.5, and 6 furlongs, and goes a distance of ground to score, even on grass. I think 6 panels on conventional dirt's your best trip. Flat Out Diamonds. I did think it was a little curious that she came in for the 12.5 last time, but Cluley does that. He will run them where they can win, even when they have good forms, recent forms, in higher class races. It's almost like he didn't care about some of his prime property in cases like that. So Clouston jumps in at the box, and I've often said Cluley. That his nickname on the backstretch is low-hanging fruit. They call him clueless, which he ain't when it comes to getting raw run out of a thoroughbred state. And as I mentioned earlier, not the first guy I would halter from. Dennis Cluley. I am intrigued to see if Flat Out Diamonds can stay the course and stay in good form out of the box over to Clouston, who's been in an increasing slump, like now one for his last 19. Eddie Uslett is okay out of the box, though, and rarely visits the claim box with one of those big red clown envelopes that they use. Flat Out Diamonds got a great setup on grass, too, back, just to come into some of the minutiae of these recent wins and deconstruct them. Flat Out Diamonds was in a great spot when the 2 favorites went out there and just threw down. It was a definite suicide pact. They were throwing haymakers at each other. The 2 speeds in there. And Flat Out Diamonds just inherits the lead. But there's one caveat, an important one. Flat Out Diamonds hates turf. I don't think the horse likes turf at all. So it still impressed me, even with a great setup for Flat Out Diamonds there at 11-1. So Flat Out Diamonds comes back, can't lose. When Flat Out Diamonds does lose, and it's kind of a rarity, given the impressive local record on dirt for flat out diamonds, it's usually because she gets shuffled back too far in the early stages of a 5.5 furlong race. This is 6, and she probably gets a trip flat out diamond. So the question comes down to, I think, a couple of things. Does Larimar readily dispatch the one horse, Can't Fake the Hate, who was this field's only hope of somebody keeping 22-time winner with the speed style Larimar honest here through the early stages? And also, you got to wonder, how big does Flat Out Diamonds perform out of the claim box over to anybody besides Dennis Cluley? And then you've got Larimar on the outside, who Juan Pablo originally brought here, right? A couple of years back, and had some good Phoenix form, but definitely took it to a higher level here at the Mountain. Was horse of the year a couple of seasons back. Larimar, man alive. Back then, she could stalk the pace. She could go to the front. And she was winning open allowances with the speed figs, like high 80s and stuff like that. Larimar, I'm not going to say she hasn't lost a tick or two off her Beyer speed fig fastball, Larimar, but she's still more than bona fide. And somehow in those ratings handicaps, which are sometimes ill-conceived, I think she got in under the wire, and her number qualified her to win at 4-5 and 1-2 and 3-5. And they finally got smart and wrote her out of those things, I guess. So she's got to compete with the other big girls. And man, does she have heart by speed horse standards. Some of those runners that she competed with in speed dueling fashion over in Austintown are the straight up real deal, I can tell you, because I know the Austintown horses there. So she's a bona fide $25,000 claimer on the Ohio circuit. And I'm not talking about restricted state breds either, Larimar. And the only thing that is going to keep her honest and give this field, I think, a chance to beat her is Can't Fake the Hate on the inside. It's got some speed, but Can't Fake the Hate's more like a methodical speedster, never opens up at first call, and sometimes even prefers to lap on those leaders aggressively when pulled wide at a quicker speed in some of those races. Can't Fake the Hate was off from November until February, and now off again since February. But Eric Reed does this, and it doesn't always indicate the horses are crippled or sore or anything like that. He's almost like those smug commercials, Orson Welles, where he said, "We will sell no wine before it's time." And Eric Reed just very patient and waiting to run his horses. And Can't Fake the Hate, well managed, boy, well managed with that 5-for-11 record, huh? Yeah, that's impressive. But you're coming off the shelf, and I don't know if Can't Fake the Hate is fast enough, straight up fast enough to deal with Larimar for an extended period of time in this race, huh? Miss Fussy Pants is 6-1 up there. I think she's probably too low. Miss Fussy Pants, she can do it either or. She can go to the front, or she can rally. She can stalk. The starter allowance horse, who might be a little bit out of her element here at this stage of her campaign against some at least pseudo allowance foes. And Miss Fussy Pants, when she wins on May the 18th there, she got the lead, which she never does. And once she got the lead there at a very modest tempo to the first call, she's too strong to be taken down from behind. It's not going to happen. So that was kind of a gimme, a base on balls from Miss Fussy Pants. Early delivery, like no chance at 17-1. I think that's pretty obvious. Pop Style was in good form. And then you got Dave Treehorn, who bites at the claim box. Waited actually until Pop Style tailed off a little bit. Had finished way back as the favorite, and they still dropped the slip. And we did not see any earth-changing improvement from Pop Style first out of the box there. Honeybella had taken like 3 consecutive class drops to lose as the 2-5 favorite, and Treehorn still drops the slip on her on March the 21st. She sometimes travels funky and stays left lead. I think she's a lot of heart, is Honeybella, and she's another horse that just has not stepped up to raise game over to Treehorn. Honeybella, 12-1, and giving her body a work that tells you a lot about what her recent form is not. And it's not good. It's just not good. 1 minute to post, and we're still in the paddock. Shane and I watched a cheesy, low-budget horror movie called Rumpelstiltskin. I think it was last night, or was the night before. So this guy was a pretty convincing woodland troll, Rumpelstiltskin. He was straight up evil, man, and creepy enough to hold your attention. And there was this disturbing, which was kind of tingly for me, sexual undercurrent between Rumpel and the fair blonde maid that somehow induced him to spin straw into gold for the evil king, you know. But kids' fairy tales are like 30 times as nasty and malicious as current horror movies, right? Bad stuff always happens. So Shane likes to stay on theme. Wanted to come back and watch Hansel and Gretel tonight. And what happens there? Some kind of an old witchy wants to eat the kids, just straight up serve them with a bottle of wine and a nice Chianti. Fava beans and a nice Chianti, huh? I want to watch The Death of Robin Hood, which is available for a standard rental now. You don't have to buy the sucker to watch it. I just can't get Shane interested in The Legend of Sherwood Forest. And I like it. I like it a lot. I don't like the Kevin Costner iteration, though, because his accent was just so bad. It was one of the worst acting performances I've ever seen. It ranks right up there with Keanu Reeves as Jonathan Harker in Dracula. Yo, dude, it's the Count. Costner's almost as bad as Robin Hood because his accent just kind of comes and goes. It's really bad. And he's got like, what, 5 merry men? And they don't look too tough to me either. Looking ahead to the last race. To bet or not to bet on Cyber Time, if you were mine to bet the daily double, I can break it down to Cyber Time or Gone Boy, and that's going to be very obvious to the players. Vasquez is so hot, and Cyber Time has yet to establish his 2025 form, which was out of the stratosphere, 6 for 6, all across the Mid-Atlantic region. Is Gone Boy the now horse who's going to get the race flow in his favor there? It's going to be a bigger price than Cyber Time, that's for sure, huh? And as far as this one goes, King Clouston obviously holds the best cards, and I'm surprised right now they're flat out diamonds. I don't know if this comes from the inside from Eddie or not. Is lower, but that incredible Mountaineer Mark is actually lower than Larimar. Is Larimar become suspect from the standpoint of current class after slumming in those funky ass, not always quality laden ratings handicap races? I have taken the Equibase thoroughbred horse ratings on which some conditions are now predicated, some actual race conditions. This was always their goal. I have taken them to task, both in a video that I was pretty passionate about. Check it out. I've got some non-racing analysis commentary on the YouTube channel. Einstein Now Writes Race Conditions, I think is the title of that one. You might enjoy it. And it may be informative about the new rating system. So anyways, I took them to task again the other day on what I thought was some inaccuracy, discrepancy, horse-to-horse ratings. And Chance Moquette, who I guess is one of the stakeholders, well-respected horseman, and coming up with the algorithms behind the ratings, was conscientious enough to give me an answer online. And his response made some sense. He said, they're not really devised so much to get down into the minutia and compare horse to horse with a fine line who's 1 point higher than somebody else, but instead horse groupings. Now, I don't completely agree with that response, but I respect him for coming back with a good response and taking the time to answer the issues that I voiced about the Equibase rating system. I don't think they're real keenly attuned to cheap horses of the Mountaineer ilk, especially horses that run in cheap condition races. And I don't think those ratings are all prepared to discern the subtle but distinct differences between different conditions and class levels down very close to the bottom at a racetrack like Mountaineer. But I do respect his answer, and I much appreciate him coming in and being a stand-up guy on social media and answering my complaints. So good on you, Chance Moquette. You're a credit to the industry stakeholders that are behind the algorithms, the Einstein algorithms on which a lot of race conditions are written now, the Equibase horse ratings. Boy, what a horse, and got to give it Clouston in that case because that's as good as I've seen from Flat Out Diamonds. Wow. I know Larimar, who had been slumming on those funky ass cheap ratings handicaps, was perceived correctly by the crowd to not be as good on current class as Flat Out Diamonds, and they were dead right. But Flat Out Diamonds still had a formidable loose leader to run down, a 5 for 11 runner who was dead fit off the sidelines for Eric Reed and who had beaten good stock last time. And an on-claimer at Austintown, Can't Fake the Hate. So just great stuff from Flat Out Diamonds, who is now 9 for 17 over the Mountain Main, was 6 times second. That's just an amazing record for Flat Out Diamonds. What I'm curious about, did Cluley go back in on Flat Out Diamonds? I don't have sound here. I wish they'd put some kind of a graphic up when a horse gets claimed so I could see it. So you guys have sound, right, on the Mountaineer feed? Did you hear any kind of a claim on Flat Out Diamonds there? Wow, man. Wow. What an effort from Flat Out Diamonds. And now Klaus will be looking for another ratings handicap for Larimar. We'll see how much the number drops off that desultory performance. So now we come to the feature. In the 8th race slot here, this is really interesting to slot the feature race here. We want to keep our attention, right, till the bitter end. Now when there's twice in 26, this is an allowance. They've had some success riding this race. We're going 6 furlongs. Got to field the 5. Good field, though. Cyber Time's the sexy horse. Cyber Time was 5 for 5 last year. I caught this horse's action in Austintown and was really impressed. And Cyber Time, after won a couple of races at Mahoning, and boy, was Cyber Time well managed last year. Runs for 20,000 a couple of times, wins for 20,000, then wins an A other than and some kind of a condition, a further condition, and an allowance, and then they pull out that starter allowance card with Cyber Time, and then with still further planning, careful planning, to plot the campaign for Cyber Time. They go to Delaware, where I guess the purse on those allowance wins had been too small to disqualify Cyber Time from eligibility under the all over again A other than condition. I know this sounds very technical and complicated, but man, how Big Heavy Boy skillfully managed and maneuvered Cyber Time into all the condition races and all the softest spots that he could for Cyber Time. But you got to be impressed. Cyber Time is 6 for 6 on the page. Is the favorite. Was chalked each outing last year? I was chalked. No, it was chalked in 4 of those wins. Chalked 4 times on the hard copy form and wins each time. Was unbeaten last year and took it across the Mid-Atlantic, Delaware, Pimlico, Mahoning, Laurel. Impressive stuff from Cyber Time. You never know if they're going to come back the same way to the races. And Cyber Time, why stay here instead of going to Laurel or someplace like that? Coming to Mountaineer with Cyber Time. Is Big Heavy Boy telling us something about Cyber Time's current class and current condition? The horse that beat Cyber Time last time has a phenomenal win record, Moro, and is a very good horse and was actually favored to beat Cyber Time, the well-bet Cyber Time. Cyber Time at a pinch can also be rated a little bit back behind the lead. And Rivera does not make a celebrity appearance here and stick around to ride the last unless Cyber Time is probably going to run like Cyber Time. Earlier, I might have been concerned about the inside post. Not so much. I think it's passed the test in a couple of races tonight. Although most of the winners have been out a little wider. And another one of my caveats about proclaiming Cyber Time an absolute lock is some opposing speed, some horses that have been running in shorter sprints for the most part and aren't Cyber Time class. Jamie Cameron is a starter allowance specialist and not straight up allowance timber against this kind of field, I don't think. But man alive, what an incredible career he's had, Jamie Cameron. Starter allowance royalty, folks. Jamie Cameron. He hadn't had the lead, though, in his last 3 races. And 2 of those were shorter sprints. And last time he didn't fire in that undercard allowance that was just loaded with classy quick speed on the Derby undercard on August the 9th. I don't know if that's ominous or not. He gets Barrios. Jammin Cameron is a really strong speed horse, very determined, but he can be topped. I've seen it lots of times. I would more worry if Cyber Time's in strictly speed mode from the inside. I would more worry about an early burst from Dropkick Murphy. Dropkick Murphy. I don't know if this horse is better on turf or dirt, but he beat Honeyquist. It was a stakes horse on turf down to the wire and a 5/8 allowance on July the 8th, and came back It was in with a fellow Quickster. They were a turf specialist, but a fellow Quickster was Dropkick Murphy. I don't see Murph doing much going 6 furlongs with a pace outlook this stiff, but can run 22 in light change to the first call at 5/8 and 4.5 and stuff like that. And you move this horse out to 6 panels off all those 5/8 races, and that only intensifies his speed. So he's the one that would concern me to go out there and flash extreme speed, maybe make life complicated for Rivera on Cyber Time. And if he gets complicated or Cyber Time is not what he was last year, and it's possible, man, it's possible when you read the tea leaves here, then Game Boy is the only finisher in town, the only horse that can beat behind and then come with a good late move. A Gone Boy, I'm talking about. A Gone Boy, the only thing that could beat him here last year after the clock turned over to spring. The only thing that could beat him last year after the clock turned over to spring was the West Virginia Derby. Other than that, this horse was winning by big leads and leaving body counts out there. Gone Boy earned himself a ticket into the Derby at 70-1 there. Did Gone Boy. None of this means that he can rally even at a shorter distance, Gone Boy, but all the speeds in there could make him a finisher. And he was pretty good in that mode in a classy undercard race on Derby Day there. Now, the pace was intense, and it set up for Gone Boy to do something if he's willing to change his tactics at a sprint distance, and he was. He fired from behind Gone Boy. Two factors that bode in his favor here, I think, Gone Boy. One of them is that he's just at a golden stage of his career. So many 4-year-olds just explode with between maybe 10, 12, and 15 or 16 starts worth of experience under their belts. And also, you got to factor in Vasquez. Big heavy boys got the sexy record and allowances and a great history at Mountaineer, but Vasquez is an owl guy at Mountaineer, and his horses are just jumping right out of their skins. So there are things that point to Gone Boy in here, but he can't beat Cyber Time straight up if Cyber Time is okay and Cyber Time trips out from the precarious inside post. Lord forbid he outclasses the other speeds in there right from the jump. In that case, it'd be over. The only way Cyber Time loses this is if Dropkick Murphy and maybe Pure Panic on the outside with a 4.5 history and exits a fast-paced, cheaper race and goes over to Marshall Ghazi, who's been a wizard this year. If one of these horses can go out there and complicate life for Cyber Time and force Rivera to rate and alter course, or maybe get suckered into a big speed battle. So I think it might be the post. If Cyber Time is destined to lose this race, that would have to be the culprit. And that is Anthony Ferrier. And has my man lost a couple of pounds? I used to see Anthony, and I'd say, because he's a man who's a little sensitive about his poundage, and I used to say, nice guy, though, Anthony Ferrier. And I used to say, Anthony, what size is that shirt? He thinks I'm asking on the square. So he says, it's a 2X. At which point I'd always respond, and it didn't come in 5X, Anthony. So he'd give a good-natured smile, but my man does not like his totage to be referenced. On site himself there, big heavy boy Anthony Ferrier with Luis Rivera along for the call. What a package. Pure Panic as low as 7-2. I think they were coupling that near 500,000 with the Ghazi factor, but on performance, he's not good enough, Pure Panic. And you can't like the pace outlook for him either. And it's not like right now Gone Boy offers some amazing value as this field's arguably second likeliest winner because he's 2-1. He's heavily bet in his own right. He's kind of the wise guy race shape horse, I think, you know? I'm not sure that recent speed pick from Gone Boy, which was race flow aided, because as good as that winner was, Beach Colt, and he was very good for Amador Sanchez. He, of the legendary incursion that involved Super Ocho, would go on to set the pace in the Breeders' Cup sprint race. As good as that winner was, he was taken to task early on some really fast fractions. A really stiff pace set up there that kind of turned Gone Boy into a finisher. Could be more of the same here, and probably duplicates that effort, given the Vasquez factor too. Whoever he leads over is firing right now and firing big. But that speed fig, which again was race flow aided to some extent, I don't think would strike much fear in Cyber Time, if Cyber Time is Cyber Time here. For Gone Boy to take 7-2 or something like that, I might get interested in betting against the likelier Cyber Time. But if he stays as low as 2-1 and Cyber Time continues to tick above even money, I would lean Cyber Time here. Good luck to you guys. Many thanks for making the scene here in our dungeon. It's yours too. I will catch you again on Sunday. And as always, I'll come up in about 15 minutes to post. Just another reminder, you guys are not my fans or my viewers. You're my friends. And your presence is much appreciated. Mark Patterson out.